bees. Does anyone want to listen to some beekeeping information? Come on down to the beekeeping tent with the mad beekeeper. Yeah, thanks. Ding, ding. Cute. Just going to wait a few more moments because I have my friends that I haven't seen come in. Where are they? Can you guys see the screen okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, you're in a good spot. All right. All right, so while we're waiting for everyone to come in, let's do a little quiz. How many eyes does a bee have? Who knows the answer? How many eyes a bee has? Carl. A bee has 5 eyes. They have 2 eyes on the front of their face, which kind of see like how we do. They've got 7,000 lenses on them. And then they've got 3 eyes on the top of their head, which they use to navigate to the sun. So that's how they get around with their 5 eyes. And how many wings does a bee have? 4. You're right. I do school incursions, so we have a little quiz. Actually, this is another good one. Does a drone bee have a stinger? Oh, you'll pass that one. Okay. Do you reckon you've seen a drone bee before? Do you actually? What makes you think you've seen a drone bee before? Have you been in a beehive? Oh, okay, cool. Can I get a hands up? Who has bees? Is everyone in here keen on bees? Amazing. Who wants to get bees? Okay, sweet. You've had bees. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that all of the bees that they see out in nature are all female bees. And you'll only see a drone bee if you're actually in a hive. So, yeah, the hive is 90% female over spring and summer and 100% female over autumn and winter. So this is my fun facts for you. I think I'll get started. Okay, kick the button. So, ko mahipi te maunga, ko kaihoata te awa, ko takitumu te waka, ko ngā tūmapuhiarangi te hapu, and then a bunch of iwi. So I'm Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa, Tuwharetoa, Te Atiho, and Rangitane, which is in the Wairarapa as well. My name's Renata Gilbert, and I have been keeping bees since 2021 in Australia. So te whenua moi moia, I established Australia's only corporate beekeeping company. So what we did is that we found that a lot of companies on the east coast of Australia had this kind of like a greenwashing fund where because they were such huge conglomerates, they had to have a sustainability arm of their business so it looked like they were giving back. So they had tens of thousands of dollars that they could do composting, solar panels, bicycle repairs, and we came in offering corporate beekeeping. So what that meant is that we maintained lease beehives on top of green spaces, balconies and rooftops. And this photo up here is on the 29th floor of a building in North Sydney. So that was really fun. Don't recommend corporate beekeeping anymore, funnily enough. Bees don't like being on a 29th level building in a city. They do it because we ask them to do it, but yeah, I don't. I left Australia and left this business because my evolution on how I understood te taiao and bees changed. So did my actions. So I also have done hundreds of school incursions. and from preschool right up to ag classes for beekeeping, and corporate and private activation. So a lot of what we did was taking people through beehive tours, teaching them about bees. I guess the good thing about corporate beekeeping is that you wouldn't expect to go to your office and go on a beekeeping tour or learn about bees. So that was a good way to educate people about the importance of bees. And last year I co-hosted Australia's first Natural Beekeeping Summit in Byron Bay. So this is something I'm hoping to bring here, because it actually seems like there's not many people who know much about either treatment-free natural beekeeping or anything like that. So the best beekeepers are the bees. And if we have healthy soils, we have healthy plants, we have healthy bees. So it's actually, I love being here and listening to everybody's korero, because it is the health of the soil that determines the health of the bees, in actual fact. Like, if you want your bees to be healthy, they need to be eating their kai from healthy soils, full stop. Anything that's made for the convenience of man is more often than not to the detriment of nature. And I've seen this time and time again where, especially in beekeeping, we invent products or hive styles, like, for example, the flow hive, which is made to turn a tap and honey comes out. And it's, oh my God, this is revolutionary. You don't disturb the bees. But the flow hive has plastic in it. The bees, why would you think bees would want to make their rongoa in plastic? And the mechanics of a flow hive break. And there's just so many issues with like the thickness of the wall of a flow hive. So yeah, it's great that you can turn a tap and get honey, but what does that actually do to the bees? Yeah, that's really hard to get bees into a flow hive. They have to be quite aggressive to actually make you any honey. Let me try. I've seen people struggle with this little clicker thingy. I hoped it wasn't going to be me too. Can you click it for me, please? It has. I wonder if I can. I've got my laptop here so I can also click through. Okay, cool. So I'll start talking about why bees matter while this slide starts to come up. So the bees, there was a study done, a research with the UN that said the bees are responsible for 70% of the foods that we eat. So they say 1 in 3 mouthfuls is due to pollination. So without bees, we wouldn't have the foods that we enjoy. And I say this very broadly because we'll get to native bees and native pollinators in a second. But let's just say without bees, we won't enjoy the foods that we get to eat. They're an indicator species. So if the bees are suffering, you look for tohu in nature all the time, and you can see some of the trees that are on your whenua. If the trees are struggling, there's other things around it that are struggling. I loved that story about the guy with the tōtara tree this morning who talked about he took the sheep out and then he planted trees, and the trees had mates, and so that tree thrived. It's the same with bees. If you're looking through a beehive, you can literally tell through the health of the bees and the health of how they're laying their eggs and how much honey they have to what the whenua is telling you around them. A lot of people just think that they can get bees and chuck them in a paddock and be like, oh, she'll be right, but they don't have any food to eat, and so they feed them sugar water, which isn't their diet. So sugar, anyway, I'm going to get to that. So they're essential for food security and sovereignty. So if we didn't have, oh, here we go, here's a nice little picture. And so honeybee, native bee, like the size of my thumbnail, and our bumblebees. So we have... I'm going to get to it in a second, but it's a $5 billion industry here in Aotearoa. So I think that the way we've set up beekeeping and commercial beekeeping, there's at the moment a place for it, and I don't think that as much as I would love to have a restructuring where we don't have bees commercially kept and have more of our native pollinators and a small fraction of honeybees doing the pollination, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. This is a really confronting video that we're not going to watch yet. So, okay, cool facts. So in a honeybee's lifetime, it makes 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. So 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey is all that one bee makes in its whole lifetime. just so you know, like a pea-sized amount of honeys. In China, they have used so much pesticides that they no longer have bees there, and they hand pollinate. It takes 20 men to hand pollinate which one bee does. And they're actually looking at inventing a robot to do pollination to help them out there. Or you could just stop using pesticides and let the bees repopulate, but hey. They live about 40 to 70 days. This is honeybees and native bees. And I'll get to all of the other sensing stuff, but can we change the slide? Do I have the clicker again? Ah, oh, nice. Thanks, Ange. No. Okay, that's all right. So honeybees arrived in Aotearoa in 1839. We've got 41 species of bees in Aotearoa. 28 of those are native and 13 are non-native. But in the whole of the world, we have 20,000 species of bee. So Australia has 2,000 species of bees. We've got 41. But our native bees evolved with our native plants, and so all of our native bees are genetically adapted to pollinate our native plants properly. So they're really important. And our tuis and our wax eyes and all of our insects really that have grown up on our motu are adapted to pollinate our native plants. We have in Aotearoa 500,000 honeybee hives. Sounds like a lot, because it is. And if you can imagine that a commercial beekeeper, let's say in North Canterbury or Otago, is dropping 60,000 beehives on a couple of hectares of land, what hope do you think our native pollinators have to get fed in that same area? They don't. So the amount of honeybees that we have in such small areas just outcompete any other of our pollinators. And I don't think it's something that people think about. Bees are our tuakana, so they're our older siblings. They've been on Papatūānuku for 120 million years. They actually know more than us. Bro, I'm waiting for you. So the thing is not working. And we've been manipulating bees for 180 years. So doesn't that what else happened about 180 years ago? So the way that we keep bees now is very different to how we've ever kept bees, and we've been keeping bees like there's cave art painting from 60,000 years ago in a cave in northern Spain where we've been keeping bees forever. We've been in partnership with bees more so than we haven't, and I say that we haven't really been in partnership with them now. Oh yeah, cool, you got the pictures. So this is the female bee, this is the mum, and this is the drone. I don't like using queen or worker bees. Like worker bees, very patriarchal. All of the female bees are sisters. The drones are the boys. So I don't know if you can see here, but our native bees, 5 mil, and this is the scale to 5 mil, and a bumblebee to 5 mil. So we actually have all of these amazing native bees all around the motu in all different areas, and we wouldn't even know because they're so small, they're so black, and they're so tiny. You probably just think they're a sandfly or something. Next slide, somebody. Oh, yeah, quick facts. I just put these in. Yeah, so we did the 5 eyes. They see in ultraviolet. So if you think about our line of sight and what we can see and compare it to a bee, bees see more than what we do. I liked the guy, was it Steve, the quantum physics guy? So he was talking about the antenna, which I really loved, because bees actually smell through their antenna. So they don't have noses, they don't have lungs, they have pores in their skin, which they breathe oxygen through. And so it's crazy, if you think about what Steve was saying about antenna, and bees smell through their antenna, what does that say about smell and the importance of smell to them? And they can actually smell their beehive from 8 kilometers away from where they are. So they've got an extremely great sense of smell. And the other thing is they kanikani, so they dance to communicate. So if you allow bees to create their own wax, to make their own insides of their homes, the wax is actually quite thin that if they're dancing or no matter what job a bee is doing in the hive, the miri-miri or the vibration of them walking through their beehive reverberates throughout the whole home. And so there's a harmonization that everybody knows where everyone is. And because their mum is a little bit bigger, they can always hear her in the hive. And what happens is that the mum has a pheromone that she passes on to all of her children. And so that's the reason why bees can't go into other beehives. Well, the female bees can't enter into another beehive because they don't smell like that beehive. The boy bees can go into any beehive because they are the storytellers. So the boy bees hold the pūrākau, so they go around the neighbourhood and suss out what's happening with all the other beehives, if there's any virgin queens about to be born that they can go and mate with, or, you know, and then they come back and they share that information in the home. So the boys can go in any hive, the girls can't. They can go into another hive if they have a koha. So if they turn up, if they're lost, or if it's cold out and they've just found a home, they will be allowed entry into that beehive if they come with nectar in their belly or pollen on their legs. So yeah, that's really funny. Bees navigate with the sun, so they are very connected to Ranginui and Papatūānuku, and they can tell the weather better than us. So we might be having a really great day now, but then you'll see all these bees just coming to fly home really quickly all of a sudden, not realising that the weather's about to change. The waggle dance. So this map up here, how they communicate. So a bee will go out and find a miro tree or something like that, be like, oh my God, the flowers are finally ready on the miro tree. Got to tell all my sisters. And so it'll fly back home, fly into the beehive. It'll go on a frame or on their home, and it will dance in a figure 8. And the veracity in which they dance tells the rest of the bees how good the food source is. So if she's just like, oh man, that's not a really good dance. But if she's like hardcore like dancing, then they'll stop and look at her. And so the length of time that she dances, so if she dances for 1 second, it's 1 kilometre. And if she dances at a 30-degree angle, the bees know that if they leave the beehive and go 30 degrees to the sun for 1 kilometre, they'll find that food source. So that's how they communicate. They're really, really cool. And I guess this is kind of school stuff, but like this is how they see flowers. They don't see flowers how we see flowers. They see our meridians as well. Like I was just talking to a wahine before who told me she got stung on the elbow. Where are you there? And I said to her, did you look up the meridian of your body where you got stung? Because a lot of the time what bees do is they will sting you because they see a disharmony in your body. So as long as you're not the one in the beehive disturbing them, if you're just out in nature and you get stung, look up where you got stung and what part of your body that associates to. Bee sting therapy was actually the first type of acupuncture before acupuncture existed. So you'll find out that no beekeepers actually have arthritis. Okay, quickly to native bees. So, not quickly. What? Oh yeah, the bee venom therapy. I'll swing back to it. Bro, I've got so much to say and I'm so passionate about it. And I'm like, I just want to plant seeds. So like if you have any questions, you can find me afterwards and then I can just be like, blah. But so native bees. We have banks of clay, trees, dead trees, ground. So if you're walking through the ngahere on a path, you'll probably notice that underneath you where we've been walking is perfect and you'll see little holes. All those little holes are native bees. So they also will burrow into trees that have been used for, if termites have gotten into it, if other beetles had made holes and used it, native bees will come and use that same habitat. We don't have much PR and marketing for our native bees because they don't produce honey. Our native bees are solitary. They're only around, there's a conversation that happens between native bees and the whenua. So they're in Hini Ahuone, in the Onioni, and then Ranginui, he gets hot enough and shines down on Papatūānuku, and that signals the bees to come and be born. And they usually are born, they're usually under their favourite tree that they like to feed on, and then they'll come up when the conditions are right, when all the atua have been talking to them, and come and feed on that tree. They only fly around 500 metres. So if you don't have native plants 500 metres around that nesting place, they're going to die. So it's really important that if you see native bee sign, and you'll notice it now that I pointed out to you, like it's just tiny, tiny little holes all together. If you see that on your property, it's probably best to try and just observe it for a little while and see if you can see insects coming out. Now it's too late in the season. But I would ask that you protect it and just see what happens for the future time of the bees. They're so tiny, so like those two pictures at the end, it's like, they're really, really little. And you'd think they're flies or sandflies. And if you look at them on dandelions, they're the easiest. There's heaps of them here. If you look at dandelions, you'll see the blackness of them and be like, oh my God, it's a native bee. The next slide, create a native bee habitat. So I just want to do this really quickly. The native bees, they need to nest in kind of like bricks and mortar, clay, wood, and sand. So if you made like a little shelter and had those elements in it, you'll probably attract native bees as long as you've got native plants around you. Really important. What is the next? Oh, yeah, this is really cool. So Dr. Nairi Hart, she did her PhD on native bees, and I'll just quote her. Native bees preserve the natural structure of native forests and trees, which depend on pollination for their own reproduction. Through this can be seen the reciprocal act of kaitiakitanga. And the artwork for this, her whole, you can find it, I put it down there, and everything's linked on my website as well. But I just think she is so cool, and she talks about the connection of rangi and papa as well. She talks about kotahitanga, and she's the only one I know that's ever done a study on native bees, and she geeks out on bees just like I do, so I really appreciate her. Okay, threats to bees, us. So urbanisation, climate change, pesticides, monoculture, and pest and disease. So all no-brainers, really. Anyone confused about why bees are under threat? Honeybees live in trees. So they're European honeybees. They came with the colonisers on their ships, and they have quickly adapted to our environment, and they naturally live in trees. So if you think about or caves, or the wall of your home. So a beehive, they usually have, in nature, really, really thick walls. So what that means, oh gosh, I'm going to get so technical here. Wait, I'm going to stay on the track. So in a tree hive in nature, there are over 5,000 other organisms that live in the beehive with with the bees. So the beehive is up here, and then down the bottom of the tree, there's kind of like muck and stuff, but in that muck and stuff are so many other fungi, insects, and bacteria that actually help the whole ecosystem of the beehive. And what we've done, we've just removed the bees out of their environment and put them into these really thin boxes and are like, go for gold, you guys will be fine. So yeah, and I wanted to touch on, what's our time? 20 past? 20 minutes to go? Okay, cool. So they do talk back to, and I'm in my first year of Hua Parekore verification. Woo, Hua Parekore. So I'm really excited to do a maramataka on the bees. A lot of people are doing a maramataka, but it's not specifically for bees. They'll just be like, oh yeah, harvest on a high energy day, or in Tangaroa or something like that. But it's not actually to the bees, because if you imagine, okay, it's been raining for a week, and then it stops raining the next day. Would you go into a beehive? Nah, because they've had a week of rain, they haven't been able to forage, they're going to be really shitty, and then you go into a beehive and they're going to be like, get the fuck out of here. So there's different tohu and signals like that in the seasonality that are really important, and how they speak to everything else. So I just chucked up, manaakitanga, maramatanga, kotahitanga, and whakawhanaungatanga, because when they are allowed to live with their mana motuhake, they don't have things like pest and disease with them. They can actually coexist with them because they have the correct environment for them to thrive in. Oh yeah, these are cool. So this is a swarm of bees that I guess either decided to live here or ran out of time to find a home and just decided to build a home on a branch. Once they start making beeswax on a branch, they're not going to move unless a beekeeper comes and gets them. So I reckon that these bees swarmed, they couldn't find somewhere quick enough to move into. If they don't find a home within 4 days of swarming, they're likely to die. And so to preserve their life, they just started building from a tree. This is one of my swarms, and then this is a beehive from South Australia in a cave, which I thought was just so cool. So these are like where bees would prefer to live. And also, they don't want to live so close to each other. In nature, they live like 50 meters away from each other. Okay. Exploitation of the bees. Okay, so What we're quite used to here in this country is we're used to having other people come and keep bees on our properties. We're used to what it looks like with huge beehives on trucks being carted around. We're sold this over and over with the Manuka honey. But actually what they do in commercial beekeeping is quite shocking. And I think that people don't realise it's just another way of factory farming. So bees keep their beehive at about 36 degrees Celsius all the time because that's the temperature they need for the pupae to turn into bees. So if they get chilled or overheated, the babies in the beehive will die. So it's really interesting that we've designed these big boxes with really thin walls, and we ask the bees to live in there, like it's weird. And then we add chemicals and feed them sugar water. So I don't know if most of you realise that all of your Manuka honey that you're buying because it's, oh my God, it's so great, they've all had pesticides in them. They're all in plastic frames. So if the beehive's sitting at around 40 degrees, give or take, and then the bees are putting honey into these plastic frames, like, is that actually what you want to be eating? Yeah, it trips me out, Manuka honey. It's great, Manuka honey, 200 parts MGO, super awesome for burns, topical. They still use it. 2019 bushfires in New South Wales, they used it, the first responders, on the paws of the koalas and the animals that got burnt in those fires. And I did talk to a few nurses in the ER that said that if the burns are strong enough, they'll actually use honey as a first form of defence. But I just think we just need to think about where's the honey coming from? They artificially inseminate their mums. So in the wild, the guys will like the story. So the women do all the work, and then what the boys do when they're around is that about 4 o'clock every day, they leave the hive and go to the pub in the sky. So it's legit. It's actually, I reckon it's on a cross meridian or a vortex somewhere, because throughout generations, it's the same place that these drones go to mate. So they fly in a vortex. We've learned about vortexes today, if you're with Steve. So all the boys leave at 4 o'clock. They go to the pub in the sky, and they just fly around waiting for a virgin queen to fly through. And then this virgin queen comes with her sisters. They lead her to the vortex, and then the queen flies up the vortex as fast as possible, and the strongest, fastest boys get to mate with her, and it might be about 30 different drones. Woo! Great day for her. The drones' penises explode off their body, and then they fall to the ground and die. Yay! So that's how, in nature, the queen mother reproduces. What they do in commercial beekeeping most of the time, and I'm generalising here, I'm sure there's nuances in here that you guys want to fight me with in a second, but that's okay, is that they clip her wings, she's artificially inseminated, and then she's restricted into one box of the hive so she can't go up and lay eggs in the honey supers because we need the honey looking pristine and perfect. So they also will kill her probably once a year or once every 2 years because they want her at peak fertility. So as soon as queen bees will live for 5 to 7 years if you let them, but in the commercial beekeeping industry, they kill her every year, which is fucked up. I feel like it's an attack on the matriarchal in every way, you know? And then they force them to birth. So when a beehive swarms, it is one of the most magical things you could ever be on in your entire life. I've had friends who I've taken to swarms, and they're like, this is better than drugs. And it actually is, because the vibration of the bees, and there have been studies that if you get enough bees together swarming, they actually change the thermodynamics of the air and can bring thunder and lightning. So they're extremely high vibrational beings. They've been around longer than us, and how they reproduce is by swarming. So they might be thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much to eat out here. We need to create another family so everyone can enjoy the fruits of our labor. And so that's what they do. I'm not going to go into detail how they do it, but yeah, they decide that they're going to swarm. They create a sister hive. Part of the hive stays in the beehive, and what they do in commercial beekeeping is that they just split the hives willy-nilly. They mess up the whakapapa, so they'll buy bees from, say there's a queen breeder in the Wairarapa, and they'll buy their bees from Wairarapa and then send them down to Ototahi, and then put them in their beehives that have been in Ototahi for however long. Like, it's really weird that happens, because first of all, I'm not going to get into queen breeding, but I just think that if you're going to have bees, ideally, make your own beehives from the rako in your area, make them with thicker walls, catch your bees from a swarm. Like, swarm bees are freebies. Like, literally, if you find a swarm, they're literally freebies. So as long as you've got somewhere to house them, if you get a family from a swarm, it's so rewarding watching them turn into, like, build comb and start their pātaka. Yeah, there's nothing like having a beehive from its inception. Anyway, there's a really fun video I'm going to show you now about commercial beekeeping. This is filmed in America. They might have different machinery, but the practice is the same. Technology is so great. I believe in you. You can do it. Yeah. Tell me. Nah, play the film. I'll have a think about it. I have an answer, but you're not going to like it. Okay, watch this.
Swarm out, the colony is divided into two. A commercial beekeeper beats the bees to it and turns one colony into 4 to replace dead colonies.
Brood. Honey. Eggs. Oh, everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. Someone to open up their ears. Trouble. Yeah, you don't have to sympathize or care what they might do, but everybody needs somebody that they can talk to.
Each colony is split up. Eggs, brood, and honeycomb are allocated to 4 empty boxes like spare parts, thus mixing them with other colonies. Most of the queens die in the process. New queens are delivered by FedEx and placed in the hives.
Yeah, sweet, that's it, bro. Yeah, did you guys know that's what happens?
I think so.
What do you reckon? Sorry, who said that? Yeah, so they don't, here in New Zealand, we don't use that same machinery, but the way that the bees, like how it scrapes across the top and all the bees die, so we do that by hand. And the splitting of it, there's no kind of machine that they can hang up all of the frames like that. They're in the field splitting them in the same way, but just by hand. So yeah, the machinery is different here in New Zealand, but that's the same practice, unfortunately. So the commercial bees are farmed so heavily that they outcompete native bees. Bees in nature, they don't move, they're stationary. The most important thing for a beehive is to have local forage around the hive. Bees don't move. Bees make honey because they eat it to survive. So honey is their carbohydrate, pollen is their protein. They also drink water and have something called propolis. It's their pātaka. So the reason that bees make honey is because over autumn and winter, when the forage is low, they have the honey to feed their family. When commercial beekeepers take honey out of the hives, they then feed the bees sugar water. And you guys might think that's okay, but it's like you're taking out the bees' food and then substituting them with sugar water. Like, how do you think that's going to help the bees' digestive system and their health? I talked about the temperature of the hive. Oh, and most of the time commercial beekeepers, I know I'm sounding like I'm really shitting on commercial beekeepers, and tell me if you ever find different, but the honey is heated. So if you heat honey over 40 degrees, you're killing all the medicinal properties of the honey. Like, you might as well just have sugar. So a lot of the time in our supermarkets, we've got these really cute squeezy bottles that the honey never crystallizes or go hard. It's always liquid. So it's been pasteurized or homogenized. Like, it's liquid because all of the good stuff out of it has been killed. So honey should naturally crystallize because it is sugar, a natural sugar that our body understands how to process. So the answer, is that lady still here? You'll tell her? Yeah. So I think it's my dream, honestly, is that if all of us had our own beehives, just one beehive, you know, we were in partnership and communication and relationship with that beehive, and then we understood the process of how we get the honey. I don't know what best practice other beekeepers do. There's a slide at the end that talks about what you could ask your beekeeper if you're buying honey. So if they heat it, if they use miticide strips, if they move their bees, what type of hive style they use. And honestly, it's us as the consumer that will help drop the ideas into other beekeepers to think, oh, why are they asking me these questions? Is there another way? Like, curiosity's been a huge thing on the list this festival. Next slide, bro. I'm going to talk on varroa mite really quickly. I'm guessing you all know what it is if you've got bees. So in Cuba, when they got varroa mite, they were too poor to afford treatment, and so they had to let the bees evolve. So most of the bees died, but then when they came back genetically diverse enough that they could actually live alongside the varroa mite. So it took Cuba 5 years for the genetic diversity to come back, because if you think about commercially bred bees, they're only getting the genetics from one drone bee, where in the wild she's getting genetics from 30 different bees. So yes, I mean, in Australia, they just got varroa, and now they've started treating with varroa miticide strips, and the varroa mites are already becoming resistant to those miticide strips, so they just had to keep revolving different types of chemicals in the hive to help with varroa. Or what we could do is let the bees figure it out, let them evolve through it, and then, like all these other countries that are in the blue, they all have varroa-resistant bees because they've let the bees gain their genetic diversity. So how it also helps is having smaller beehives, insulated walls, and less manipulation. So when I talk about manipulation, I mean opening up the beehive. Bees don't have an immune system. We're talking about how plants have an immune system in the soil. Bees have an immune system through something called propolis. Who knows what propolis is? If you had propolis lozenges, eating it. So if we have a propolis lozenge, it helps with our immune system, helps us get better. It's antifungal, antimicrobial, all of those really great things. In the beehive, every single beehive has its own recipe for propolis, and they coat the whole inside of the walls, the seals, any gaps in the beehive, they'll put propolis there, and that's their immune system. So if you imagine that we're coming in every 2 weeks or every month and we're cracking the lid to have a nuhi at these bees that are just trying to do their thing, each time we're cracking that seal, we're actually messing up their immune system. I'm not saying not go into your beehives, but just be really conscious of that. People farm the propolis, people farm royal jelly. The way you get royal jelly is that you have to make a whole bunch of queens, then kill them all, and then take the royal jelly. So it's not worth this. They don't even know if it makes you look younger. That's why there is royal jelly. Oh yeah, cool. Honeybees have been sacred for tens of thousands of years. It's only the last 200 years that we've forgotten who they are. So the ancient Egyptians used to worship them. We have cave art of honeybees. We have Mesopotamia, Crete, Oracle of Delphi. There's so many stories throughout all of history, throughout all of civilization. It's even in the Bible of how sacred bees are. And if you were a religious person or you needed light, the beekeepers had the beeswax to make the candles, and so you were actually pretty high up there in society if you had honey to trade and beeswax to give people light. There is a cult of women called the Melissa. Anyone heard of the Melissa? Yeah. Mahomi, right there. So the Melissa were a group of women 6,000 years ago, documented for 2,000 years of practice. The Melissa in Greek means bee. So they were bee priestesses that lived in caves, and people would go to them and get oracle or get prophecy. So they'd go up and see these women in the caves that were bee women, get prophecy from them and go back out, like tohunga, I guess. And then patriarchy came and stomped them and turned, the oracle of Delphi to Apollo, and all that fun stuff happened. Okay. Oh, that's too far ahead, is it? What's next? Go one back, bro. Modi honey. This is just a word I made up, but it makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So how bees create on the comb, they have their nursery in the middle, then they put propolis around the outside, pollen around the outside, and then honey around that again. And they create it in like a football, like an oval shape like this. And so when the baby bees are born, their pātakakai is right there. What happens usually is that they restrict the queen. And so she can't lay throughout the whole hive. So what happens if you have honey... Oh gosh, okay. A season. This is a Ware natural beekeeping beehive. So what happens, you have 3 boxes of beehive. In summer, the queen will lay her babies down the bottom because it's cooler. In winter, she'll naturally move up through those boxes and lay in the top box because it's warmer. So all throughout the beehive, she'll be laying eggs and moving seasonally with the season. And then when it comes back down to winter, they put all of the honey in the top box because they need it for insulation and food. And then she'll put her nursery down the bottom so they can aircon it better. So what happens is that if you eat honey that has had babies in it, you're getting hints of propolis, hints of royal jelly. It's just a medicinally higher, potent type of honey. But because it doesn't look... because we've been trained to see honey in a different way, people aren't attracted to it, I suppose. But in Australia, there's a really big want for this type of honey. In Australia, it's called post-brewed honey, and it's just honey that has the full medicine of the hive in it, so Modi honey. And it's actually $60 a kilo for this honey in Australia, compared to $7 a kilo for normal honey that's never had any brood in it. So, just dropping some seeds that there is a market for it. I just need you guys to go out and share the message. I'm going to hit quickly on apitherapy. How are we going for time? Woo, cool. Apitherapy, so the first type of acupuncture was bee venom therapy, propolis for our immune system, bee air therapy, so in places like Europe and Ukraine are really awesome beekeepers. There's a mask that you can get that hooks up to the hive, so it's extremely hygienic inside of the beehive, and so you hook up this pipe into the beehive and you breathe in this air, and it actually has helped with long COVID. Is that what you call it, long COVID? Yeah. And then honey is medicine. Like honey is rongoa. You're actually eating the puti, the flowers of your whenua. Like it's so high vibrational and so powerful, and I think we just need to give the bees back their sacredness. Oh, I'm going so good. Okay, what can I do? Like I said, beekeepers will adapt when they see there's a need for the consumer. So, very controversial, but just let the bees swarm. And I think if you guys all have like big bits of land, if you're farmers, and if you can get a beehive and just allow it to swarm for a few seasons, the genetic diversity that those bees are going to have compared to your neighbour's commercially bred bees are going to be far superior. And I guess what might happen is eventually when the commercial beekeepers have over antibiotic and chemically treated their bees, they're going to be looking for the natural beekeepers to get strong, resilient bees from. Plant flowers that bloom every time, like all times of the year, because not only do honeybees need it, our moths and butterflies, that really cool lady here yesterday was talking about that. We just need plants. I say to people, if you want to get bees, plant a garden first. Make sure that they've got food all year round. Buy honey off a local beekeeper, if you know how they're collecting that honey. The honey from your postcode, it's called postcode honey, it's got the rongoa you need in it. So if you have hay fever, honey that hasn't been overly refined or filtered, it has traces of pollen in it. So it's like a homeopathy that you can take, and you're getting small doses of the thing that you're having a reaction to as a cure. Ask the beekeeper questions like, do you use miticide strips? Do you feed sugar water? What style of beehive do you use? Do you heat your honey? Do you move your bees? Or you can find me online and subscribe to my newsletter, or invite me to your house and I can teach you all about how to keep bees in a more natural way. I really like biodynamic beekeeping as well. There's this really cool tincture that they make in Australia where they collect a lot of varroa mites and then they burn them at a really high temperature and put them into a spray bottle, and then they spray that all around the beehive. So any varroa that are trying to come, they smell the scent of dead varroa mite and then they don't come, which I think that is pretty amazing. Oh yeah, some pictures. Okay, so this is where we could go as an industry. So if you imagine, okay, I'll give almond fields as an example. It was really funny when the vegans made almond milk really cool, because actually it is the most detrimental monocrop for bees that there ever is. So a beekeeper might get paid $150 per beehive to ship their bees to the almond fields for pollination. So you imagine that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for one task that takes maybe 6 weeks out of the whole year. That's a lot of money for a beekeeper. But the beekeeper knows that by transporting thousands of beehives to one part of the land, there's going to be so much pest and disease because the bees are forced to only eat almond flowers. They're around other beehives that might have pest and disease. So they know that they're going to get death from doing the pollination services. And it's like a necessary evil because people want things pollinated. Why am I talking about almonds again? Yeah, monocrops, they're really bad. I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, so I feel safe. Local, for honey? Oh, yeah, this is local lake. So this on the screen here is I used to do bee meditation therapies in like multi-tenanted corporate buildings. So you know how they do like yoga on your lunch break and things like that? I used to go in and take a beehive that I'd sealed up for the day, and we'd go and do hum exercises. There's something in our culture called ma oro oro, and it's where you take 2 breaths in and then you hum out. It's like and it actually vibrates your bones. And I think if anyone's done yoga, they know about that bee breath, where it helps regulate your system. So yeah, I would do meditations in Australia with the bee breath. This is a bee healing hut. So it is a hut with a Kenyan top bar beehive underneath that you go and lay on, and you can hear the vibration of the bees and smell them, and just again, it's a way to cleanse and clear your energy. I added this in here because of what Steve said before. So this is us trying to find meridian lines, because bees like to live on cross sections of meridian lines. So if you have bees that swarm to the same place all the time, it's probably one of those meridian lines. And then we have dowsing rods that we learned how to douse to put bees wherever they needed to go. And there's a frame of queen bee cells because they're peanut-shaped. And I don't know if many people have seen what a queen bee cell looks like. And then there's the mum herself. So she always has a posse of daughter bees around her, constantly looking after her. So she doesn't feed herself, she doesn't groom herself, she doesn't poop outside of the hive. So she always has a maiden circle of bees looking after her every single need, because she is obviously the kaitiaki of their whakapapa. Oh, look, we got to the end. Great. So this is me. If you scan this, it takes you to my website. I've got a few links on beekeepers I support, the types of beehives, and books that I would recommend. And then you can also contact me on there if you want to know more, or you can come and talk to me now. Ange very, very graciously built this beehive. This is called a ware beehive. It was made by a French guy back in the 1600s, I think. And the reason that he made it is because women were being oppressed by their husbands and they weren't allowed to leave the house. But if they went beekeeping, they could leave the house. And so he made these beehives for them, and he made them so it's more in line with how a bee would want to live. So you have a smaller box with thicker walls than a conventional beehive. This is a quilt box. So what you do is you fill it with wood chippings and put like old sheets or whatever on either side. That goes on top of the hive. The only thing that you're missing, Ange, is the top bars. But the top bars go across the beehive like that, like normal frames. Quilt box goes on top. That's the insulation, which wicks away all the water and keeps them nice and warm. And then you've got a gabled lid, which also helps with temperature regulation. Temperature regulation is really important in a beehive. This beehive you under super. So what happens is that if they build out this box full of comb and honey and babies, you'd get another box and you'd put it underneath because you don't want to ruin the thermo whatever that word is of the beehive. So if you imagine what commercial beekeepers or most beekeepers do is they put an empty super, they put an empty bee box on top of the beehive. So the bees freak out because they've got all of this air that is just up there, and what happens is that they make lots of honey because they're trying to fill the space so they can have proper thermoregulation again. But if you put the box underneath them, you won't get as much of a harvest as you would the conventional hives, because bees only make that much honey because we force them to. But you will get a harvest at the end of the first year. So what happens is that if you keep under supering, it's called nadering, if you under super all the boxes, you'll get to 4 or 5 boxes high. At the end of autumn, I can guarantee you that that top box is going to be full of honey. So what you do, you take the top box off, you get the bees out, and then that whole box is full of honey for you to use. Bees can make like 50 to 100 kilos of honey a year. So it's a lot of honey for like one whānau or one hapori, one community. There's also Kenyan top bars. So what a Kenyan top bar is that it's like a turned over log hive. So if a log hive's like this, a Kenyan top bar's like this, it's horizontal. The walls are thicker again, it's smaller, and the bees they expand sideways, and so you put frames in and they go out sideways, and then in winter they come back to the middle and you take your honey out after that. So I've got those hives on my website, and I'd love to have some questions if anyone has any. Yeah. Are they? That's amazing. Do you know what my experience of beekeeping clubs has been? 60-year-old cis white male men who seem to know it all and aren't open to any conversation about natural beekeeping or women in beekeeping. So I'm really happy to hear that that's your experience. So yeah, I think the Facebook groups can be really toxic. If you talk to anyone about beekeeping and you ask 3 beekeepers one thing, they'll tell you 6 different answers. Like, it's just such a crazy community. It's my favorite community, but yeah, it's a bit of a bully culture. It's weird. But I'm glad that's not your experience. I can't be your friend. Yeah. Meridian lines. Oh, golly gosh. Okay, energetic lines throughout our body. Look up Chinese medicine, meridian lines, and the earth has ley lines and Hartmann lines throughout the whole globe. If you think the world is round, that is. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Bee meditations are awesome. Okay, this is actually you got me going with a story there. Yeah. I planted you there, didn't I? Okay, this is how you approach a beehive. It's not the bee meditation, but it's a really good practice. So, okay, if the smoker was invented, did I tell you the smoker thing yet? No. So the smoker was invented to smoke our own energy field. And just throughout time, it's turned into something that we need to smoke the bees. No. A smoker was invented to cleanse our own energy so that when we entered the beehive, we would be calm. So bees are extremely energetic. I've time and time again, I've had this happen, that if you're having a bad day, if you're angry and you try and open a beehive, those bees will sting you. They pick up on your energy. If anyone works with horses, if anyone works with animals in a therapeutic way, it's the same thing with bees. So to approach a beehive, you need to be in a really calm state of mind, in a meditative state. And you would approach the beehive like you would a womb. The bees are divine feminine energy, and I don't care if that sounds woo-woo to you, they are. They're very high vibrational, and they embody the womb. So as a woman, how would you like someone to enter your womb? And as a man, how would you like someone to put something in your ass? So, you've got to think about these things when you're going into a beehive, because it actually is, if you're busy somewhere else, you have to, oh my gosh, you have to be present with bees. As soon as you lose your presence with bees, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to get stung. I don't know if you saw any of these photos, but I don't wear protective gear. The reason that I don't wear PPE is because I'm looking for the signs in te taio. Has it been raining? Is it too windy? What's the temperature like? How have these girls been last time I went inside them? So before you even enter a hive, you're sitting there in front of the hive, you're tuning into them, maybe you're humming to them, you're telling them your intention of why you're coming in. So it could be a swarm that you've had sitting there for 2 months and you're like, girls, I just really need to know if I need to put a new box on you. I'm going to be in and out in 5 minutes. I'm going to be really quick. And so if you're talking to the bees, there's an old folklore about tell the bees, that if you don't tell the bees that the beekeepers die, the bees will abscond. So if you're clear on your intention for why you're going into the beehive and you stay true to your word, then you'll be able to get in and out without any protection. The bees will check you. Before they sting you, they've already done 4 things to say back away. So they've come up, they've buzzed in your face, they've buzzed in your face a little harder, they've started kind of like dive bombing you, and if you're not listening to those signs, then they're going to sting you. The stinging doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes because you haven't listened to them as they've been trying to tell you, hey, no, we're not ready for this. We're dealing with varroa right now. Or we've got some wax moth that's really pissing us off. Or when you were last in here, part of the comb dropped off because you weren't careful enough and it took us 2 weeks to fix it. They're extremely sentient beings. I don't understand how we've been here for how many, 200,000 years and think that a being 120 million years old, that we're more smarter than it. Yeah, I've got heaps of stories like that about bees doing really cool things. Yeah.
If you're out, say, on the water, and you have a bee land on your boat, and it's obviously tired, it's landed its way out there on the water,
Yeah. Yeah.
should you feed it honey or should you feed it?
Okay, great question. There is a disease in everywhere called American foul brood or European foul brood, and what that is that it's a fungi in the honey that if a bee eats that honey and takes it back to their home, it turns the inside of the beehive into goo. It's really gross. So they say not to feed bees honey. I always feed bees honey because I know where my honey comes from. And I think there's a really great, well, I haven't spoken to these guys yet because I wasn't sure on their vibe and I didn't want to freak them out with my drastic views on beekeeping. But there is a Canterbury organic beekeeper I haven't been able to connect with, but I think if they say they're organic and they're talking about it, like I look on their website and make sure, and that's the honey that I buy, so I know that if I'm feeding bees that are tired, that the honey's okay to use. At a pinch, you could use sugar water, but yeah, cool reaction, I like you. Yeah, so I'd love to keep bees in the Coromandel. Like, that's the thing, like I imagine just like picturesque, untouched, never had pesticides, all these native plants and, and rongoa gardens at the bees. So the other thing is, bees drink morning dew. So they'll drink morning dew from like a thyme plant or something like that, and that's their rongoa that they need, that they get the natural constituents off the plant that they then digest. Really cool. Yep. I actually don't mind residential beehives, but what's the rest of your question? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Jesse. Okay. Where are you in a highly populated area?
10 neighbours, 140 square metres property,
So by the looks of you, I'd say that you live in a pretty cool neighbourhood, that if you told your neighbours that you're going to put bees on the roof, they'd be so all for it. Because, okay, this is another cool fact. Bees will fly up to 8 kilometres to forage. So it's like at least a 70 square kilometre radius around where you have a beehive, they'll directly pollinate in that area. And anyone that has a garden in that area will be directly impacted by the pollination of that bee. So that's a cool fact that you can tell your people. Jessie from Bees Up Top, I love her. She's doing great things to educate people on, I used to do what she did in Australia. But she still uses plastic frames. She still uses queen excluders. She still treats her bees. So you can tautoko her business and get her to come in and manage it, and she gives you all of the kind of details on what the bees have been up to and all that type of stuff. Or you could just find someone that's really geeky and then get them to have a special interest in bees and save a lot of money. Like, it's a hard one. I don't want to poo-poo her business, but what I'm trying to do is to help give an alternate way to keep bees that is more how bees want to be kept. There's a lot of people doing it. I haven't met another person that thinks the same way I do since I've been back here. It's lonely. I need to find my peeps. Yo. Oh, they don't even know it's bee poo. They don't even know that there's bees up there. Yeah. I can talk to you afterwards. Okay, so ideally it's good for bees to be on beehives. We haven't been doing that with them for so long. So if you have a rooftop that's really perfect, that's no longer than 7 stories high, that you might want to put some bees on, then go for it, man, because the impact that you're going to have by having those bees there for everyone in your community to learn about the power of bees will outdo the fact that they're not on the meridian or they're not in a natural beehive. So go for it. Is there any other cool stories I haven't told? Oh, I have so many stories. I just want to say one last thing. She's not here, but I want to tautoko Gina Lee Duncan. I don't know if you heard her in the panel before. She was the reason that I made my way home and introduced me to Ange Clifford and Nick Gill. So I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be here to talk. This is my debutante, guys. I do all this stuff in Aussie, but I've come home after 17 years, and this is me coming out. And also to my beautiful partner here who is recording everything I say, Mick. But yeah, I'm like, honestly, my dream is I would love to work with hapori, with community, with marae, with like-minded communities that are happy to have one beehive in a non-traditional way and go against the grain of the corporations so we can all say, enough is enough. So I know we've all got our little like our little things that we stand up for, whether you're GE-free, pro-Palestine, pro-choice. My thing is the bees, because I have so many amazing humans that stand up for all those other causes that the bees are a hill that I'm going to die on flying my freak flag. Thank you so much for listening to me chat. I hope to hear from a few of you, if not today, then through the interwebs. And yeah, ngā mihi nui.